Hello everyone, today's video is going to be extremely critical if you really want to learn a powerful chess opening which has been played by every top grandmaster in the world, including Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, Anish Giri, and many more. So, an English opening is a very strong opening. I would say this particular opening has no particular structure, but it can lead to many different structure, and it is very easy to play and it is very interesting to play. And after watching this video, you are definitely going to try out this particular opening in your games. So I don't want to waste any single time, so let's quickly jump into the video. So, English opening, we are playing with the white pieces and we start the game with 1c4. The point of 1c4 here is we are pushing our side pawn at the place of the center pawn. The basic idea here is we are taking control of the center d5 square. And after c4, there are two ways for black to continue the game, either c5 or the move e5. If black plays the move d5, we can happily trade off the d5 and play the move knight c3. And we develop our knight with a tempo hitting the queen, and white is already having an edge. So black is having two main options. First, we are going to look at the main option, which is played by every player who doesn't know how to react to c4, which is e5. And I guess if you try out this opening against your any club member friends or anything, they are definitely going to reply to e5, which is the most solid move. And after e5, we play the move g3. The idea of g3 here is we want to put our bishop to g2 on an open diagonal. And you're going to see this g3 bishop g2 point in the future. After g3, black plays knight f6. The idea is to simply develop the king side castle as soon as possible, which is very sensible. After knight f6, we play the move bishop to g2. And here black is already having two moves, either knight to c6 or d5. First, let's try to discuss what happens if black plays the move knight to c6, simply following the fundamentals of chess, developing the pieces. After knight c6, we play the move knight c3. And here, again, black is having two options, bishop b4 or bishop c5. First, let's try to discuss what happens if black plays the move bishop b4, trying to hit this knight. Here, we are already going to jump with the knight to d5. And our idea is to capture the bishop. For example, if black castle, we are happy to get the bishop, and we can already expand on the queen side. We are having the bishop pair. You can already claim this position as slightly better position for white, practically speaking up. So going back a bit, if black captures the knight on d5, which is the most practical option, we capture the knight back, c into d5 and hitting the knight. Here black is having two options to go to e7 or to d4. If black goes knight to d4, we can already play the move e3 hitting this knight. The knight is having two moves to go knight b5 or knight f5. It doesn't really matter because if knight f5, we are having queen g4 and either piece is going to be captured and white is going to simply win the game. And if black goes for playing the move knight to b5, we are having queen to a4. Again, hitting both the pieces. Black can't really defend both the pieces, and eventually white is going to win the game. So this is what happens if black goes for the move knight to d4. If black goes for playing the move knight to e7, putting pressure on the pawn on d5, we can already play the move knight to f3, trying to hit the pawn on e5. And here, if black plays the move d6, it's already a blunder after queen a4 check, and the bishop is going to be captured on the next move, and we are going to win the game. And this particular move is very easy to blunder. So here, if black plays the move knight into d5, which looks kind of natural, simply capturing the pawn. And here, at the place of knight into e5, which our opponent is most likely expecting, we are going to play the move queen to b3, simply hitting this knight. And if you try to defend this knight, for example, you can't move this knight because the bishop is hanging. So you must defend this knight with c6, but now here comes e4. The knight is attacked, and if you move the knight, your bishop is going to be dead. And if you move the bishop, I'm simply going to capture the knight. I'm going to win the game. So this is what happens if black goes for playing the move knight to e7. So now let's try to discuss what happens if black goes for playing the move bishop to c5 in this position. After bishop c5, we are going to play the move e3, which is very sensible. As the bishop is particularly very strong on the c5, we are trying to limit this bishop by playing the move e3, putting our pawns on the dark square. Black castle, and here we put our knight to e2 at the place of f3 because we want to keep this bishop at the most powerful piece. And after knight e2, black plays d6 with short castle. And what is the most common move in this position? The most common move in this position is to play bishop e6, trying to hit this pawn on c4. But congratulations, it's a blunder. We are going to play the move d4. Expanding on the center now. After d4, like if you try to capture, bishop goes back. You can't really defend. You can't do really anything about it. The d5 pawn push is coming up. One piece is going to be dead, and the game is over. You can't really defend it. So this particular position is completely winning. That's the point. Bishop e6 is easy to blunder. d4 is completely winning now. So this is what happens if black plays the move bishop to c5. So now let's go back and try to discuss what happens if at the place of knight c6, black goes for playing the move d5. Simply striking in the center, which looks very practical to be true. After d5, we are going to simply capture the pawn on d5. Knight into d5, and here you simply develop the knight to c3. Our idea is to simply capture the knight on d5. It's a double attack. So here, what can black do? Black must capture the knight on c3. Or else, if you don't do anything, for example, if you go simply back, it's not a good idea because you simply put the knight at d5 and now you're putting the knight at f6. So the most practical human approach is to simply capture the knight on c3. B into c3. And what's the good thing about it? We simply captured toward the center, which gave us an extra pawn in the center. We are going to discuss how this pawn is going to be extremely useful in the future now. After b into c3, knight to c6, simply developing the knight. We develop the knight. Bishop to d6, short castle. We play the move d4. And here, like if black captures the pawn, we are happy to capture the pawn. And as you can see, we are having the full center control. And this position is already good for white. So if black tries to push the pawn to e4, we simply play the move knight to g5, which is extremely interesting. Because knight is a double attack, the pawn is double attack. And the only way to protect it is to play the move f5, which looks very sensible. You're protecting the pawn, you are having more space in the center. It should be good for black. But it's winning for white as after queen to b3, check. I'm pretty sure that this particular theme has been happening in your game in the past. After queen to b3 check, the king have to move, and after knight to f7 check. It's a check, the queen is hanging, so black is forced to give up the rook, and eventually we are exchange up and we are going to win the game. So this is what happens if black goes for pushing up the pawn. If black captures, we are happy with the center, and yeah, we are going to play the move bishop b2, push the pawn to e4, maybe e5, maybe d5, we are already happy. So this is what happens if black goes for playing the move d5. So, yep, this is what happens if black goes for playing the move e5 or something. If knight c6 and d5. So now let's try to discuss what happens if at the place of playing the move e5, black goes for playing the move c5. After c5, it looks very sensible. Black is simply copying. We play the move knight c3, knight to c6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop to g7, knight to f3, knight f6. And this particular structure is extremely common. If any player don't know, he will simply copy you, which is pretty good way actually. But after knight f6, short castle, now he won't be able to copy us anymore. We are going to already strike in the center after d4. After d4, if our opponent tries to copy us, it's not a good idea. After dc5, pawn takes, we can simply play the move queen f4, rook d1 is coming up, and if you try to play the move queen f5, after queen trade, bishop e3, bishop e6 can be played, but here, knight d4, and the bishop is attacked. So what can you do? You don't have much things. So that is the thing. At this particular position, white is going to have the edge. So your opponent can't really copy you till the end. Like if black tries to move the bishop up, now we can already play the move rook a1, and you can see how our position is already pretty good. So yeah, this is what happens if black goes to try to copy us. Most likely he would like to take on d4. Knight into d4, and here what's happening? After knight into d4, black captures the knight. Why? Because black wishes to open up the center by playing the move d6, but he can't really do it because the knight on c6 is double attacked. I would simply capture the knight followed by bishop into c6, and we are already a pawn up. So going back a bit, that is the particular reason black is going to trade off the knights, and don't ever be afraid of this particular pin. Nothing is going to happen, so don't worry about it. And here, the good thing about this bishop on g2 here is It is extremely powerful. It basically enables the bishop on c8 to move because the b7 would be hanging in the future. So after queen to d4, black plays the move d6, trying to open up the bishop. And here we simply play the move queen to d3. After queen e3, many of the players would think that bishop f5 is coming with a tempo. But here guys, we can simply play the move e4. And we are already having a pretty good center. Our next move could be to play the move knight to d5. And we are already pretty good. That is the reason bishop f5 is not a good idea if you try to play anything. So I must tell you how you should try to continue this position with the white pieces. What should be the plan of white? White can play the move b3 followed by bishop b2, which is a pretty good square for the bishop to develop on b2. Another idea could be to put the bishop on e3, simply extremely powerful. Eyeing on the ascent pawn, doubling up, maybe a rook can go to d1, a rook can come to c1, and yeah, you can even think of expanding in the center. Put the knight to d5. The position is extremely good now. So this is how you can continue if your opponent lands in this particular position. You are still having a practical edge, and computer also gives a slight advantage to white. So yeah, this is how you should play the English opening. It is a very comfortable opening, and yeah, going wrong in this particular opening is pretty hard. It's pretty hard actually. So that is the particular reason every grandmaster in the world, Magnus Carlsen, Anish Giri, Hikaru Nakamura, Daniel Dubov, every grandmaster have played it. So you can also try out this particular opening in your game. So I hope that this video might have helped you to improve your game and knowledge. If it did, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel because we are going to come up with these interesting videos like this. So I'm going to see you soon, so till then stay tuned and keep watching Oneshot Chess.